Namaste, Talofa, Pula, Kia orana, hello from New Zealand, the Pacific, and to wherever you are in the world watching this live streamed right now. Welcome to my Straight Up show. So this show is where I try and gather leaders in the health and sports professions, tap into their hearts, their souls, their minds, see what makes them tick, and try and get some real gems from them around how you, the listener, can help to empower your lives and be the best that you can be. And with my guests today, I'm sure you're going to get quite a few gems and a few gold nuggets out of these two. Two of my favourite human beings, as I've said before, the newly married Chelsea Semple, nee Ali, and James Semple. Welcome, guys. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having us. Good to be
Awesome.
here.
Let me introduce you guys.
Thank you.
Let me introduce you guys, just not that you need any introduction. James, I'll start with you. Obviously, a first-class player in your own right, played for Counties and North Harbour back in the day as a first five and a fullback. You then, I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, you then went to Scotland, played for Curry.
Yeah, mate. Yep. Made my way over there, which was an awesome experience.
And that was your first experience then as coaching as well, too, wasn't it?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I sort of started transitioning to coaching then. I'm a lot better coach than I was a player, thankfully. Glad I made that transition pretty early.
Did you get a cap for New Zealand universities too?
Yeah. Got a couple there.
So you're a first-class player at New Zealand universities, and now you're saying that you're not building yourself up too much there, mate. That's that's pretty good standards there. Also, Utah Warriors as well. That's where you went over there as a assistant coach and a player, and that was probably your first real taste of professional rugby, correct?
Yeah, mate, definitely. I was probably more of a coach, originally signed, and then ended up playing as well, just with a few injuries in that, which was awesome because that was sort of my last sort of dash at playing and putting the boots on, which was cool to sort of finish like that. And I think coaching actually really helped me as a player too, which was cool. But awesome experience over there as well.
Awesome. And also a contributor to the rugby site, a couple of videos there as well. Obviously then came back to New Zealand and really formed, this is where you really came into yourself as a coach, obviously with Waikato, the FPC team, and winning a national championship last year. And obviously being a rugby development officer for Waikato as well. And now in your current role as an assistant coach for Blues Aupiki. So a very impressive resume there, James. Chelsea, on to you, mate. Waikato, 44 games. Is that correct? 44?
49, I think.
49?
We up there.
It's 49. Yeah.
49. Number 50 coming up.
Yeah,
six for North Harbour and 5 for Auckland as well, back as an 18-year-old, way back in 2011.
Yep, correct.
Capped 28 times for the Black Ferns, is that correct?
Yep.
28 times, and then obviously a tournament for the New Zealand Sevens as well, and a World Cup winner in 2017. So needing no introduction there, Chelsea. So what I want to do, I want to come back to your playing careers as well, but I want to kick off with what everybody wants to know. How's married life?
Rocky.
Hey. No, it's good. It's really good. We've only been married just over a month now, and we're still buzzing about our day. It was pretty special, and nothing much has changed. All James does is watch rugby, play passes with me in the backyard, and it's good. It's good.
It was an amazing day, I must say, and obviously being so close to you guys and being a part of it was really, really special. But how is it walking past the grocery store or the bookstore and seeing yourselves on the cover?
Yeah, I was like, oh, who's that guy that's punching?
Yeah, I reckon. That must be pretty surreal for you guys too, eh? To be on the cover of the Women's Day and have a feature article in there.
Yeah, it's pretty surreal. Like, obviously grown up in small town Tukuroa, I'd never think that my wedding day would one day be something of interest. And the coolest part of it was my papa, your dad Jeffy, walked me down the aisle, made it into the Women's Day, and Nana texted me and told me that Papa had tears streaming down his face, and he said he's so proud that he's in the Women's Day. And
it was a cool day. I mean, there was certainly a lot of onions being cut that day. That's what I say.
90-year-old Papa.
Yeah, mate, that was awesome. And so with that as well, I mean, I want to go back to, your younger days. You mentioned growing up in Tokoroa there, Chelsea. And James, correct me if I'm wrong again, I should know all this stuff, but you're a Morrinsville lad, went to school in Morrinsville?
Nah, mate, nah. So originally, my family's all from Tauranga, and
Okay.
yeah, so I grew up there and went to primary school there, and then went up to boarding school in Auckland at Sacred Heart.
Yep. So
Um,
where did I get Morrinsville from? You had a property there or something?
yeah. So there's a property there, and then my mum did a stint there for a little bit,
Yep.
and then yeah, my auntie and my nana both lived there, so a few family ties there.
Gotcha.
But yeah, pretty much Tauranga.
And so why Sacred Heart then? Were you a bad boy? I mean, why did Mum send you off up to a boarding school?
You know me, mate. I'm a goody good.
Hey, look, I'm interviewing as though I don't know you. You're a complete stranger. Okay, I know exactly what you like. So that's why I asked the question. All right.
Yeah.
So good times at Sacred Heart. Obviously, a really good grounding for you.
Yeah, mate, it was an awesome opportunity, and I'm very grateful for my parents. Obviously, a bit more expensive to send kids to boarding school, but they made a few sacrifices for myself. And with the primary school I went to in Tauranga, St Mary's had ties to Sacred Heart because of the Catholic connection.
Yep.
And yeah, I guess Aquinas was just starting out in Tauranga then, so it wasn't fully established. And I always had goals about rugby being my profession, so my parents sort of gave me that best opportunity to head up to Sacred Heart to put my best foot forward. And yeah, I was lucky that my best mates sort of came up as well. So there's about 6 of us that went up there from Tauranga for my first year.
Awesome. And so obviously you're one of, or the oldest of 5 boys. So poor Vicky, your mum. But so obviously growing up, was that, because I know with Chelsea and Nate, they were always outside on the front lawn, kicking a ball around, beating each other up. Was that like what the Semple household was like growing up? You boys out on the lawn, kicking a ball, beating each other up?
Yeah, mate, 100%.
You guys, your internet connection's cutting in and out too. You're freezing on
It's
us.
the only time in my life where I've actually been.
I'll move a little bit, eh?
Yeah, mate,
Hold on.
Get a bit closer to
Yeah,
that Wi-Fi for us.
Yeah, mate. I was pretty lucky because that was probably the only time I've actually been the bigger person versus my younger brothers. So
Excellent. And then for you, Chelsea, I mean, I know what it was like for me growing up in Tokoroa, but what about yourself? I mean, you and Nate growing up and being so close in age, you're very, very close. How was your schooling in Tokoroa and at Forest View High School?
Yeah, look, I wouldn't change a thing growing up in Tokoroa. Yeah, it's where I made my best mates. It's where I kind of became the person I am. Just such a close-knit community and a down-to-earth kind of place to grow up. When I was at high school, I got offered a few different scholarships to go to like Hamilton Girls and St. Peter's and the likes of those schools, and I got quite a lot of people judging me for turning them down. But I was so happy where I was at my school in Forest View and Toke. My mates are just such genuine people, and I'm so happy I made that decision, because now, even with all my success, I go back there and it's such a proud community, and it does feel like family down there, and they just support me in everything I do, and I still have all my best mates are still living down there, and yeah, it's still home to me.
Yeah, that is home, and that is such a cool community. It does keep you grounded as well, and I find that as well with all my old Toke mates as well. And obviously then, so what I want to come back to is when I read your stats out, Chelsea, 49 games for Waikato, 28 games for New Zealand. They're pretty impressive. But if you look at someone like, and I just use 2 examples, Brodie Retallick and Aaron Smith, both went into the All Blacks at the same time as you. Retallick's coming up 100 games for the All Blacks. Aaron Smith well over 100 games for the All Blacks. Retallick 109 games for the Chiefs. Aaron Smith pretty much similar for the Highlanders. Does that, seeing where you were back then in 2011, 2012, when you came on the scene with the Black Ferns, and only playing, and when I say only, I mean, this is a really good example of women's rugby and how it's evolved and how hard it must have been for you coming out of Tokoroa, trying to find, number one, women's rugby teams, but just getting enough games under your belt to satisfy yourself. and seeing those changes over the years to where we are now. How good's that been for you, or that progress? That
Yeah, it's been awesome to be part of kind of the whole growth from women's rugby to being completely amateur to being semi-professional to now having some contracts in the country that are full-time professional. That's only happened this year. But yeah, back in 2011, 2012, it was still very much you played rugby if your job would allow you the time off, because you're not making any money off it, and you're actually sacrificing a lot of your own time and money to be involved. And then yeah, obviously the first semi-professional contracts came about in 2017, I believe. But those were, again, like you had to have a full-time job to survive. Like they were just very much the next platform, I guess, the next stepping stone. And they slowly got better over the years, where we're at now is there's 30 contracts in the country. We won't compare them to the males game because it's just completely non-comparative. But however, there is a pathway there for young girls now, and I'm really proud to be part of that journey. And I've been someone who's sat in on meetings and been involved in kind of the bargaining and negotiating process as well. So yeah, I'm real proud to be part of that. And I know that with the type of rugby that we're putting out there now, that girls are playing, people want to watch it, and it's only going to get better. And that what makes me so happy, is that there's girls coming out of school with all this talent, and they're able to make a career out of rugby for the first time ever.
That's awesome. I've seen that evolution, and it's just amazing watching you play as a youngster, and then obviously your debut then for Auckland, and then obviously playing for university in the club comp as well, and then seeing the standard of rugby today is just, it's through the roof. It's amazing. So James, I mean, it must have been, obviously you guys didn't know each other back then, but when you were playing for counties in North Harbour, you must have been on a bit of a retainer, like a contract then for those unions.
Yeah, no, for sure. So yeah, I guess the male game has been in that professional era for a bit longer. So yeah, very fortunate, and it was always a goal of mine to be paid to play something that you love doing, because obviously it doesn't feel like work. And we were on this small sort of retainer back then, which was.
And then when you went to Scotland, was that semi-professional, professional? How did you get a hold of that contract, and how has that shaped you leading into coaching and then going on to Utah?
Yeah, mate, good question. I think for me, my goal was to be an All Black player, and then once I sort of realised that probably wasn't really realistic anymore, I was like, I'll transition my skills to try be an All Blacks coach. And I guess when I went over to Scotland, I hadn't travelled too much, so I wanted to see the rest of the world and gather experiences from different cultures and different people and learn. And then, I guess when I was sort of looking for a gig, tying in a bit of playing, because I still wanted to play because I loved it, and then also coaching as well. So, with that gig, I sort of got a bit of a dual role where I worked for Scotland Rugby and then also played in the Premiership there for Curry.
Yep.
And I was very, very thankful that I did a lot of my sort of early days coaching over there. They've got some awesome courses and coach education stuff, because it's quite a high priority, because they don't have so much of the natural athletes and X factor that we're blessed here in New Zealand. So around their coaching process and tactical side of the game, they have to be really spot on to make sure they keep up with the top teams in the world.
So then from Scotland, you then came back, transitioned back to Waikato. Is that when you got your rugby development role with Waikato?
Yeah, mate. So finished up in Scotland, and because my visa ran out, I was going to get sponsored, but that fell through because of the change of the rules in the comp. And then I actually did a little stint in Dubai with Henry Paul, and because I didn't want to come back to New Zealand without a decent sort of rugby job, because I know how hard they are to get in New Zealand. So spent about 4 months in Dubai with Henry there and his coaching sort of clinic, and then was lucky enough to pick up the gig with Waikato, and sort of been involved with the union since 2017 now, which has been amazing.
So what I'm leading into here is how these two worlds collide, because Chelsea, you played for Auckland. Obviously there was no Waikato FPC side at that stage, so you came up, you got first met alongside the great Anna Richards, and played a few games for Auckland, obviously, and then from there went back to Waikato, but then you came up into the mighty North Harbour region.
Yeah, I did.
About that part of your life up here in North Harbour and how that shaped you as well.
Yeah, obviously I'm 100% a Waikato girl through and through. There obviously wasn't a team, so as a young player, I was shocked to get picked up by Auckland in my first year playing for varsity here in Hamilton, which was awesome. I rubbed shoulders with the legends that I've been watching on TV for so long, so I was pretty starstruck. But then Waikato had a team, so I played for them for a couple of years, and then I was 21 at the time, and I was halfway through my study. I was pretty stagnant in what I was doing, and I wasn't enjoying my study at that time. And then there was an awesome opportunity to, the first ever women's rugby development officer in New Zealand. The role came up, and it was North Harbour who took that first step forward in women's rugby, and I'm still so grateful to them. I applied for the job, absolutely no experience really working, except for like working at the warehouse or doing things after school and stuff. But I applied, and I went up there and were interviewed by some pretty cool guys, Bill Wigglesworth and Brett Hollister and co. And I got the job, and it was real surprising that I did, but I'm so thankful, like I said, that I did get it. Moved up there and helped Bill Wigglesworth. Him and I kind of got the first ever North Harbour women's rugby team off the ground to play in the FPC. And that's something else that I'm really proud of. Played for them for a couple of seasons. Had a broken wrist for half of it, unfortunately. But did that, got lots of experience working in rugby, and then freshened up my whole life doing that. Loved my time up there, but then decided I needed to come and finish off my study and pull my head in with that a bit. So came back down home and finished my study, did another year of teaching, and I've been here playing for Waikato ever since. And I've worked with the Waikato Rugby Union, which is where I met old mate over here.
Yeah, well, that's what we're leading into here, isn't it? As I said, the two worlds colliding, because interesting sort of journey, James, obviously, Sacred Heart, and then, you're talking about Scotland, Chelsea, Waikato up to Auckland, and then North Harbour, etc. How did your worlds collide? I mean, James, when did you first get that Waikato FPC job? What year was that?
I came back in 2017 and then was the development officer for the union. And that's where I sort of met Chelsea, just sort of in the gym and floating around. And she sort of caught my eye. And then so I wasn't the coach at that time. But then she ended up getting a job as well for the union, and we sat in desks right next to each other. And built a really strong friendship, and I got to know the amazing person that she is.
Good banter,
good values, and always a good time, and we had a lot in common, and just spent a bit of time together. Obviously, so got to know her on a deeper level, and then I was lucky enough to be assistant coach for Waikato, and that was 2017. So then ended up coaching her, which was awesome, and it was a lot easier coaching her as not as a partner. I think for both sides as well. So that was a really good year, and I learned a lot of her in terms of the player-coach relationship. And then she was lucky enough to lock me in as a boyfriend, I guess, after the season.
Lucky enough, because I do remember you saying once there, just that one of the things that impressed you the most about him was the fact that he was actually a bloody good rugby coach.
Well, he had a group of us Waikato players who were all aiming to be part of that 2017 Black Ferns World Cup squad, and he took a couple of skill sessions with us, and we just all loved it. Like, young, fresh energy, knew what he was doing, gave great feedback. So we got him doing sessions with us at lunchtime most days. There's a core group of us, like Carla Hohepa, Stacey Flula, Tuka Natua, Hani Hereme, all really top players, and all of us just loved his coaching sessions. So he actually helped all of us to be selected in that World Cup team and do pretty well over there. So Yeah.
Awesome. So James, do you find, is it hard for you? Do you find you just get in the zone as a coach, or is there times when you think, oh shit, it's Chelsea? Do you either back off, or you actually harder on her, or are you just in the zone and being professional?
Yeah, I think my mindset is always team first. So whatever's best for the team, and that's the priority when I'm at rugby. I guess for one of my work-ons from the first year when we're in a relationship, I'd bring a lot of training stuff home and want to discuss things with Chelsea at home and talk about our work-ons, which was I'd blurred the line between the relationship and coach in our relationship.
Yep.
But yeah, I think one thing that I'm probably proud of to say was that, I never let it affect the team, because I knew that if the team failed, it would have been an easy excuse to blame it on our relationship. So I didn't want to ever let that be a thing. And credit to Chelsea as well, who's really professional around the team.
Well, I think it helps that she's actually not a bad player. So to selectors makes it pretty easy. Rather than maybe being a fringe player, there could have been a bit of conflict there with other people. But you haven't had any trouble around that at all? I mean, obviously everybody's, Chelsea's going to be selected whether you're the bloody coach or not. So there's no trouble there, is there?
Yeah, I suppose I was captain as well, which I was captain before James came in as coach. And one thing I was really adamant about was I just didn't want to be token selected as captain, because I'm obviously dating the coach, and I was quite protective of that. So he was quite good. He got the team to actually vote on who he wanted to be captain, and they voted for me, which I felt way more comfortable about then. I suppose it was good that I was captain. He was coach, so there wasn't really any doubt that I was going to play unless I really underperformed. So we didn't have any trouble with that. It was just probably we learned a lot from the first year of him being head coach, me being captain, to the second year, where would really come home and would change hats. So would take the rugby hat off, would put the we were engaged then, so the fiance hat back on. And we had a really good strategy where we had an awesome assistant coach, Mike Rogers, and all of my rugby work-ons and conversations were with Mike. So that just helped us as well. I'd speak on behalf of the girls to James as a captain-coach relationship, but in terms of like individual work-ons and that part of it, I would direct myself straight to Mike, and that really helped a lot. And we had a really successful second year doing that.
Yeah, well, that was going to lead into my next question, was around how do you separate rugby from your social lives, etc. Where do you get that balance? Because I always talk about the 80-20 rule, and probably in your guys' case, it's more probably 95-5, because you're in that environment where it is, especially with the Chiefs and Blues, it's a professional environment. So you've got to have that separation away from it. So we're being married to each other. It must be quite hard to actually get away from rugby. What are your tips? How do you get away from that rugby environment?
He is rugby. He lives and breathes it. He wakes up at 3 a.m. to watch Six Nation games all the time. And I actually said in my vows, I promise I will always let you do that. So he's literally like a rugby nut. But you can answer that one.
Yeah, she is right. I do love it, and it's probably definitely a work on for me, is probably finding a bit more of a balance with things. But Chelsea's really, really good how just open she is. I guess it's any relationship, if you can communicate well and be open and honest without worrying about offending the other person, you're going to be pretty good. So she just says, let's just stop talking code now and then say, try and listen to that. And
you've pretty much got it, don't you? But as I said to you guys, you're my favourite people to watch a game with, because not only do we go through copious amounts of red wine when we're watching a rugby game, but you also don't mind the fact that we pause, we rewind, we can abuse the players, the refs as much as we want, we can yell at the TV. And so, and a rugby game takes about 3 hours, which is fantastic. So it's bloody good. But so when we talk about stepping away, I know that you guys have a great circle of friends, and a lot of them aren't even interested in rugby. So is that a good way? Like, I mean, if we're thinking about people listening in who are absorbed in their job, they're absorbed in whatever, how do you actually step away and just say, wait, is it pre-planned? Is it spontaneous? I mean, how do you get away from that and organise your social lives?
I think it's been really cool for me over the years to have my same friend group in Tokoroa. They are my best friends and I spend a lot of time with them. I see some players, not just in the female game, but in the male game as well, and their friends are their teammates. So it becomes all encompassing, I think. So for me, it's real refreshing to go and hang out with my mates. Honestly, some of them, they come to all my games. They're so supportive, but they don't know a thing about rugby and they don't watch it. They don't care. So to them, I'm just Chelsea. I'm their mate from school. We don't talk about rugby at all. So yeah, that keeps my life real refreshing. Whereas, if you hang out with the rugby girls, who are also such good mates of mine, I love them to bits, but you always end up circling the conversation back to training or other people in the team or what you've been doing, at camps or anything like that. So yeah, my balance is hanging out with those mates away from rugby and also hanging out with my family. Our family's so tight, and I'm so grateful for them. So yeah, also like my nieces and my younger cousins, they don't know anything about what I do in rugby or who I've played for or anything like that. I'm just Auntie Chelsea to them. So they keep me grounded and keep life exciting as well.
So family and friends, for sure.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Good. So this leads on to then, I always talk about, because I'm quite passionate about mental health as well. And you've touched on it, Chelsea. I remember a post you did on Instagram, and it is really important taking that step back and trying to, as I said, just chill out. It's easier said than done, though. This is the thing, that's the reason that I've started the Straight Up show. One of the reasons is to get little gems of information from people like yourselves. And so you can help them then help other people who are listening in, who are dealing with those stresses, not only of rugby, but of life in general, of their business, etc. Because especially with rugby players, people don't understand that when you're at that level that you two are at, it is your training, it's your diet. You've got to pre-plan your meals. You can't just grab KFC after a day's work and then head off to training. So there are always all those stresses, but there is the stresses then of external factors, especially around women's rugby. And you've got those blokes there that are like, oh, women's rugby, whatever, you guys don't deserve to be paid as much. You've got to absorb all that stuff. So when it comes to mental health, what is in place for you guys around helping you guys with that? Is New Zealand Rugby helping you? Is Waikato Rugby helping you? Is there any seminars or is there any psychologists, counsellors that are with you guys, or are you guys having to deal with all that yourself?
That again, that's evolved over the years. So this is called Straight Up. So I'll be real straight up. When I was younger, first in the Black Ferns, there's so much pressure. Like you're not taught to deal with it at all. No one tells you about it. There's no secret to how to deal with it. But when you're the best team in the world and your country expects you to win every game and to be performing at your best and you're 20, 21 years old, there's a lot of pressure to carry on your shoulders. And back then there was no help. There was no mental skills coach, there was no psychologist, there was no one to really talk to about it. So I really felt that at a young age, and I kind of went through a really tough time. Few injuries, a few non-selections, and when you put so much energy into wanting to be something, so for me, I put all my eggs into one basket, and that was, I want to be a Black Fern, I want to be a great Black Fern. And if you skew off track with no support around you, you can take a really big dive mentally, and that did happen to me. And I went through probably 18 months of I was just a different person, and all my friends will tell you that I excluded myself from social situations. I underate, I overtrained, I did whatever it took. But it actually was so detrimental to me. I got injured, my whole kind of immune system rebelled against me. It wasn't good. And I had to go see a few doctors to get myself back on track. And looking back now is probably, it was horrible at the time, but it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because I'm now very self-aware, and I realize the balance that I have to have in my life to not kind of sink back down there again. Because yes, I still want to be a black fern and I want to be a great black fern. However, that doesn't define me. So what's important to me is making sure my journey to becoming a good black fern has that balance of I'm enjoying it, I've got purpose, I'm hanging out with my friends and family, I'm constantly talking to people about my mental health, because it still comes in waves, and it's always going to, being a high performance athlete. You're scrutinized all the time. You constantly got coaches thinking other people are better than you, or, you know, we've just been on that tour at the end of last year where we lost every game and it wasn't good. And man, if you read the comments on Facebook, it's hard not to feel that your country is literally against you sometimes.
Absolutely. People think that the life of a rugby player is so fantastic, isn't it? You get all your food paid for, you travel the world. This is great. You know, how could you be? Come on, man.
Yeah.
So to hear you say that is really, it's empowering for, I know, a lot of people, because I said this is being live streamed. I'm going to put it up on YouTube. It'll get a few thousand hits. And I think even if you help one person, that what you've just said then is really, really powerful. Can I ask you? Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's just important to recognize that everyone goes through mental health stuff as well, like whether you're at the top of the game like Chelsea's, or you're a butcher, or you're a teacher.
Absolutely.
And, I think it's just important to understand that. And then Chelsea touched on it as well, is just being self-aware on what makes you tick, and when you are in a rut, what you need to pull yourself out. So for me, to be in a good headspace, I always feel like I have to be progressing forward. So it's about getting in good habits for myself. So what I do now is I just get up at 5:30. I read like a PD book. So at the moment I'm reading Atomic Habits, and then I do a workout, and then I've already felt like I've progressed that day and made myself better. And for me, that keeps me in a good headspace. And if I don't do that for a week or two, then I'm a bit antsy, a bit itchy, and feel like I'm not doing a good job.
That's powerful. That's really powerful, mate, because I'm a big fan of being, I always talk about being proactive, not reactive. So don't wait until you're actually going through that deep hole or the dark hole. Is being proactive every day. And that comes down to, as you said, man, that's, you know, working out. Exercise is a big one, you know, and making sure that you nutrition is 100%, because I chatted with Frano Bodica last week on our podcast, and we're both from the same era. And, you know, back in those days, and I hate to say that, back in the old days, back in our day, but nutrition was never really something we thought about. Getting fit, you'd go for a bit of a run, and you'd do some fitness at trainings. Mental health, no one even talked about it. It was always harden up, take a concrete pill, whatever, mate. If you're injured, you get back out there and play until you can't walk. So we are evolving, but I think we do have a way to go. Would that be correct? Do you think that there's still a lot of work on there?
Yeah, I think so. I think especially in the women's game, we have made strides in that area. We now have a mental skills coach, a psychologist to help us out, because you got young girls coming straight into school, and I remember back, like what I just talked about, feeling all that pressure on your shoulders. So yeah, there's still a way to go, but we're getting there. But just what James said as well is, I'm speaking obviously from a high performance athlete point of view, but in just society, there's just a long way to go. There's still such a stigma around mental health and talking about it, especially with men, and it just annoys me that people scoff at it when people talk about it. But to me, if mental health is more important than physical health for everyone. So yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, look, I mean, we talk about the three pillars or the three stools on a chair. So for athletes, any athletes or any business person, I guess they focus on two key things. What I call, especially with athletes, is physical skills and physical fitness. But the third one that's most important is the mental fitness or the mental toughness, and trying to develop your headspace up here as well. So really interesting topic. So I want to lead into now and go back a little bit around when we talked about sort of that 2011 era when you first came on the scene, Chelsea, and at the same time, James, you were playing in NPC rugby. You had a little bit of coin. You obviously got a little bit of a contract, probably more money than Chelsea would have got playing for the Black Ferns. But again, how hard has it been for you as a coach? Because Chelsea, you've described around obviously going to work or getting up training, you're having to plan your meals, you go to work, and then after work, you've got to get to training, and then you've got to do it all over again. Now, finally, you're getting that recognition where you're a full-time professional. But for your Waikato NPC team, there's a lot of the women there, or a lot of the ladies. Haven't got that luxury. So, how different has it been, James, for you being in a Utah Warriors situation, say for example, where they're all professional footy players, and then coming back and coaching a female team? There's got to be a bit of a difference around the culture, trying to establish the culture, and understanding that these women are amateurs playing the game compared to males who are professionals. There must be such a huge gap there. What's the biggest hurdle that you've overcome there?
Oh, for me, it was probably just, and probably why I respect the women so much, and just honoured to be a part of it and witness it, because their sacrifice and the work they put in is as much, if not more, than some things I've witnessed in the past. And yeah, that's why I've just got the utmost respect for the women and what they've taught me. And just extremely grateful. And I guess in terms of a coach, when I was coaching the women's team, all I was trying to do was try and make it really enjoyable for them turning up. So they always wanted to come. They felt like they were getting better. And yeah, it was awesome that you're doing this stuff around the mental health, because we made that a massive focus for us as well. I guess we wanted to make it a safe place for women where they could come, talk about their issues without judgment, and be able to express themselves and probably perform to a higher level than they thought they could have.
I think when you hit it on the head there. I think when you're coaching, and again, this is me from the outside looking in, you've got a Waikato FPC team there that are doing the hard yards just to get to training. So they're hungry. They're so desperate to play footy. They're hungry. They're driven. They've worked all day. They've been mums, etc. Then they've got to come and they've got to do the training. Whereas again, the professional athletes, maybe it's a little, what do they call it, a sugar spoon or silver spoon or whatever, I don't know, but to me it's always around the people that are the successful ones are the ones who are driven and are hungry. Would that be a pretty good comparison with your Waikato women's team and what's made them so successful?
Oh, 100%, mate. And I think that's probably the risk at the moment. Not saying that it will happen, but with girls starting to get this money now, that they forget where they've come from and what they actually used to do. Yep. They need to make sure they never forget those roots, because that's what has made them so special. So now you're getting that money, and that's awesome. But now you've got to go to this next level, and that's where we finished. And now we take that to the next step, which I've got no doubt that these girls will, because of leaders like Chelsea, and I know the other Waikato girls and our Blues girls will do that. But I guess it's up to these girls to show that way and show the young girls coming in, this is what we used to do. Now we're getting paid. This is what you do.
Absolutely. So I want to get an idea of how the two of you have created, how you go about creating a good culture. So when we talk about a culture in any team or any sporting organisation, I guess it's about making sure that your teammates all get on well. They want to do well. They want to work hard for each other. What's some of the secrets that you guys have found that works for you in different teams as players and obviously as a coach?
For me, I've obviously been involved in a lot of teams over the years, and I've kind of just as a leader now in the Waikato team, I think back to what teams I really love being part of and why, and when I haven't felt like I've bought in as much to a team. And one of the massive things for me is having hierarchy in a team. So as the captain for Waikato in the last few years, that's been a massive thing that I've focused on in our leadership group and everything, is that we have no hierarchy. Everyone in the team is valued at the exact same level. Everyone's cared about. Everyone has a voice. So for me, as a captain at the end of training, when I was a younger captain, I'd do a lot of talking, like a lot. And I think that was my role. Like, yeah, I'm captain, I talk. that's what we do. People listen. Whereas now, if I get to the end of training and I haven't said much, and I've got younger girls having the confidence to step up and, say what's on their mind and answer questions, that's when I've done my role better. So when I was first made captain, I was terrible, but I've learned over the years, and that's the kind of leader that I like to be. And I think that helps create a really good culture when everyone's got the courage to step up and talk, and everyone's valued the exact same.
And that comes back to the coach, I guess, too, giving you that or empowering you with that and encouraging that too.
Yeah, I totally agree with Chelsea. I guess the goal with a team and with a family, you want to make everyone feel equal and everyone feel like they're contributing to that family or that team. And I guess, as a coach or leaders or someone within that team, you try to get them to go together towards the same goal. But then each individual has goals within that for themselves. So I guess, one thing that we tried to do last year was just understand each individual's goals and how we could help them achieve that, and then sort of come up with team goals together.
Yep.
And then I guess, we had a theme that we sort of felt like was important, that was going to help us achieve the goal. And then also values that you can hold people accountable to around selection and I guess the team standards. And it makes those conversations really easy when you're like, we agreed to showing up on time, things like that. You've been turning up 2 times late now. Does that live up to our team values? Do you help in this team? And then, it makes those conversations not awkward because it's written, it's seen, and you've got to live it and breathe it every moment, every session. Yeah. And obviously, we make mistakes. Everyone does, even us management and that. And also, it's just being accountable and vulnerable to put your hand up when you have made those mistakes. I think that's really important as well.
Absolutely. So as a coach, James, you've obviously got your own style, but have you evolved it off different coaches or a particular coach? I mean, are you a by-the-book coach? I mean, who's been your biggest influence in your role as a coach? And why?
No, great question, mate. And I think one thing that I really try to do is, and I learned that on a coaching course, was copy, paste, edit. And that's from everyone. So I've got heaps of stuff from you, Jeff, just from our conversations. Heaps of stuff from teachers, like our sister-in-law, Nate, Chelsea's brother, business, because it's all about getting people, the best out of people and working together to a common goal like we just talked about. So for me, just any sort of conversation I have, just trying to, how can I tie this back to our team? What's going to help our team and help myself get better? And then just recently, I've been lucky enough for Wayne Smith to be my mentor. And it's just, for
he's
him,
amazing. Yeah.
He's a hell of a man, and he honestly would do anything for anyone. So I've got nothing but high things to say about him. And the probably thing he's helped me with, I used to get a bit of I still do, bit of self-doubt, and he just gave me confidence that I was on the right track, and I sort of do think along the right lines and just keep backing myself. And when that self-doubt does come in, just keep going back to my processes and things like that.
Excellent, mate. Because I've always said too, someone has to write the book. It may as well be us. So I mean, these coaches who just look at a book and go, oh, actually, this is a drill. We've got to do this. We've got to do that. To me, they're just like, so the really good coaches and yourself as well are the ones that think outside the square and actually make up your own drills, etc., to suit your teammates or to suit your team. So for you, Chelsea, as a player, then evolving, obviously, we all know that, certain coaches, turn you the right way. Others you can be turned off by. So what motivates you as a coach? I mean, is there any particular coach that you really, really wanted to play for? Is there any coaches that have said certain things or done certain things to really empower you more than others?
I've had some outstanding coaches in my time, and there are a few that they just give you that feeling that you'd do anything for them, and they make the team just come together. And one coach in particular really, really saved me and helped me get to where I am, and that's Ruben Samuel. he's another Tukuroa boy actually, but him and I have become such good mates. And he saw my potential at a young age and just kind of took me under his wing. And that first year of uni, when I was eating all the pies and drinking all the beers, he kind of pulled my head in and helped me make that first Auckland team. And he coached me for Waikato and for the Black Ferns. And he just he's not a man of many words when he's coaching, but he just empowered you. He made you feel like you're able to express yourself on the field, which I think is a massive skill from a coach, because the thing as a player is sometimes fear of failure is what can stop you, because you're just afraid to do anything wrong, because obviously you don't want to miss selection next week, you don't want to get dropped, you don't want everyone watching to think you're useless. But he just gave you the freedom to try things, to express yourself, to play what you see confidently. And yeah, I can't really put my finger on what specific skill he had or how he did that, but yeah, he did do it. And always grateful for Roots.
He just empowered you. And I think that the higher up that chain that you get in rugby, that doesn't actually become about coaching. It might be around the catch pass, or it might be your technique at the ruck. But I think a lot of it is around empowering the players, getting the best out of the players, and creating a good culture. Would that be a fair comment?
100%, yeah. I mean, at a high level, if you pick the 20 best players in the country, you're not going to get as much out of doing like catch and pass work with them, because they're already the best in the country at it. It's more about, how do I get them in the right headspace to get on that field, feel 100% confident in their ability, and just unleash.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to, and it's funny that you mentioned Wayne Smith, James, because I wanted to get into a subject around mental skills, because I mentioned briefly the three-legged stool around physical skills and physical fitness, but the other one was mental skills. And Wayne Smith, I remember practicing goal kicking, and he'd stand over the ball and he'd sprinkle dirt over the ball as I was going into kick. And I remember looking at him going, "What are you doing, Smithy?" And he goes, don't look at me. He goes, "Don't worry about me." He goes, "Focus on the ball." So I'd run, and as I'm running into kick, he'd start whistling or something. And it was just that whole thing around concentrate on the task in hand. And he was so big on that. So, because you've been a kicking coach too, James, as well. And Chelsea, you're a very accomplished kicker. Give me an idea of, again, this is for the listeners, this is for everybody else listening in. Give me an idea or around mental skills and how important that is to be a top-level sports person, not just rugby, but top-level sports person or business person, around getting the proper mindset and concentration.
I think it's huge. I still think like Wayne Smith was way ahead of his time for that. Like, he brought in Gilbert Anoka and had to fake him being the physio to be a part of the team in those early Crusaders days. And everyone sort of knows what Gilbert's done with the All Blacks now. And I think rugby still has a bit of a way to go with that. Like, if I'm ever lucky enough to be head coach of a professional team, that would be the first person I hire as a mental skills, because you sort of touched on it before, Jeff. We focus on technical tech, we focus on physical fitness, but what controls all that? And it's our upstairs. So if we can't get that right, then nothing else is going to work. So I think we need to take a massive focus on that. It's something that I'm always trying to think, and I think we can also coach it as well. Like, I won't be as good as a psych doing it, but I can still put in little mental cues to the players so they can think about their catch pass. What's a mental cue there to flick back into the zone and things like that.
And for you, Chelsea, what about preparing for a game? What's a routine that you've got to ensure that you're at your peak?
So if you think about, like myself, preparing for a test match, to me, I think back from game day, and how I want to feel on game day is knowing that I've done everything that I've needed to do that week well. So I've done my extra skill work at the end. I've connected with whoever's playing 10, whoever's playing centre, to get on the same page. I've had my one-on-ones. I've got my rest. I've eaten properly. I've drunk enough water, all of that. So my whole process leading up is about how to make myself feel the most confident on game day. But I think the thing in all of that is you've also got to be show some adversity, because lots of times things aren't going to go perfect in a week leading up to a test, or even on that day. Things might go wrong. So that's where mental skills plays a massive part as well. Because you're going to have failures, you're going to have things go wrong, but it's about being resilient enough to understand that, yep, something's gone wrong, but you're still going to be 100% focused on the task in hand. And that's something that, again, as a younger player, I didn't have those skills, but I could confidently say now that, yeah, if we showed up to a test match, 5 minutes before kickoff because we got a flat wheel on the bus or something like that, I'd still be able to switch into performance mode and be able to play like nothing's.
Yeah, and that's what they call the funnel. So all your work should be done obviously pre-week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then you just funnel down and then you channel it into game day rather than the other way around. So all of a sudden, 5 minutes before kickoff, it's like, oh man, I've got to get into this headspace, So, and again, they're all really good tools, and it's really good talking to you guys and getting an understanding of all that as well. So I want to move on quickly because I know we've only got a limited amount of time, and I know Kevin's got a couple of questions he wants to ask. The first question I've got to ask, though, is life after rugby. Okay, so Chelsea, have you ever thought about the NRL?
No, I haven't actually.
No?
No.
Okay, because obviously then again, this comes back to the question then, when are you going to have kids? Oh, good time to freeze. Is that me?
Yeah. Oh, was it? Have you got me?
Yeah. Oh, you're up now. Yeah. No, so I think it's my connection's gone a little bit unstable.
Yeah.
Good timing.
Yeah, no, I said if James could carry babies, we'd have one right now. Like, we're ready for kids, but my body is like my career, so it's so hard. Yeah. But soon.
It must be hard because obviously now you've got the Super Rugby Aupiki, and so I want to touch on that briefly too, around how tense is it in the household leading up to a Blues Chiefs game?
It's pretty sweet, actually. It's all just banter. It's like it's much easier than when he's coaching me. It's actually easier to be on the other team because it's just like he doesn't care what I do. I don't care what he does. It's just banter. It's good.
So obviously, who controls the remote in the household? You do. Straight away, Chelsea. Good on you. Hey, Kevin, do you want to unmute yourself and ask a couple of questions of these guys, mate?
Yeah. Hey, this has been an awesome chat. Sitting back listening. So, congratulations to both of you guys. Anyhow, I've got three things, and I'll just quickly throw $5 in the COVID jar for you, Jeff. It's a private joke Jeff and I have. Every time it's mentioned, it's another dozen beer closer. Last year, I'm from Wellington, so go the Hurricanes tour. Whoop, whoop. So there you go, represent. But last year I went to the Hurricanes Crusaders game at the stadium, or the year before. I can't remember now. I've just lost total track of time. But we had the men's and women's sevens teams there. And the women's sevens team playing at the stadium was like, that was the highlight of the whole day. So we had all the sevens on before the Super Rugby game, had the Super Rugby game, and then another set of sevens games. What annoyed me more than anything was the skill levels the girls were showing was just outstanding. Especially when you watch the men play. The men were just thump, hard, punch. The girls, flair, it was awesome to watch. After the Super Rugby game that was played, and they had another round of sevens games, everyone left. And I was just sitting there with my mate going, why are they leaving when you can get to watch this awesome rugby? So what is the, in your mind, what is it that's got to get the public engaged into the women's rugby? Because you watch the games, no one's there at the curtain raiser, and then they're there for the men's game. When I would 100% be at the curtain raiser because I just know the skill level and the flair and the awesomeness and the entertainment is there. So what's your thoughts on that?
I think it's been a long journey to even get people to accept that women's rugby is a thing. Yeah, for me, it's there's a product there, right? Like women's rugby is an awesome product, but we just haven't got it right yet in terms of being able to sell that product, to market that product. I think it's like what comes first, the chicken or the egg, you know, with like, do we market it hard up first, put money into that and then get people on the seats, or the other way around? But yeah, for me, the more people see women's rugby, the more people, and I'm talking probably older men mostly, the more they'll actually switch their mindset. Because I've been working in rugby my whole life and playing, obviously. The amount of people of older men saying women's rugby's shit, it's it's not good to watch. But then when they actually see the product that's out there, they're like, whoa, this is actually good. So I think we just need to get that right, the marketing of it, put a bit more investment into that. That'll get more bums on seats, and that'll flip more people's kind of mindset about what women's rugby is about. That's
so that leads me, because as Jeff knows, and I said to you before, I run a website called rugbyredefined.com, and the ethos behind that is the second and third tier nation. So I follow a lot of countries like Cyprus, Lithuania, Hungary, and all them, because they have awesome rugby, and they actually have awesome women's rugby programs. And even just this week, the Nepalese rugby union have been all out about women's rugby in Nepal. So there's an opportunity. Go and climb Mount Everest and have a game of rugby. But but then we've just had the final qualifying for the Women's World Cup this year, and being held in Auckland. So they keep saying Women's World Cup New Zealand. They should just call it Women's World Cup North Harbour or something, because down here in Wellington we won't get to go and see it. But when you have a qualifying match at the end where Colombia were playing Scotland for that last place, how cool is it to see teams like Colombia on the precipice of qualifying for a Women's World Cup from where you've seen all the the major nations playing in that tournament?
Yeah, I think it's awesome, Like, I think just and I think that's why rugby's so great. It's a game for everyone, no matter where you're from, what size you are, what your background is. It appeals to everyone. And yeah, I actually watched the highlights of that one, and I was glad to see Scotland get up, but just seeing Colombia out there as well was awesome. And yeah, absolutely pumped for the World Cup this year. I just pray that it gets to go ahead with spectators, so the game can grow to the level it deserves to and needs to.
Yeah, I mean that's great. So I wasn't the only one that was watching it, because well, in hindsight, I'll say it, watching the Russian girls was a highlight of the sevens just recently, because even had a couple of ladies on watching it going, how do they run in that kit they're wearing? Because they just looked like they were wearing Lycra all the way through. But and it is a shame that with what's going on and the events going on in Europe at the moment, because now it's actually affecting sports people. With you guys going over Chelsea, going to Europe last year and all that, end of season tour, how hard was that being over there during the pandemic and stuff?
Yeah, it was really difficult, to be honest. We were in full lockdown, so everyone was saying, oh, it's so mean, you're in France, you're in England, like so cool. But all we saw was the inside of our hotel room and the field, basically. We weren't even allowed to mingle in the lobby too much or anything like that, just to keep us safe. So, and on top of that, we got pumped. I'll just say it, we got pumped, and we had to read Facebook comments about us and stuff. So again, it comes back to the mental well-being side, and we were lucky enough to have a really good psych with us, sports psych, and Jean, and he probably had the toughest job out of all the whole management that was on tour, and just keeping us, making sure we're healthy mentally, I guess. One thing that we were really lucky with was our girls, the friendship in our team was so close. Like, you'd think that much time away with all the adversity we faced, that there'd be some kind of bitchiness and people turning on each other, but there was zero of that. There was just nothing but support for each other. And I think that's what kind of got us through. And I'd say we're much stronger as a group of players after that tour.
So after that,
Yeah, no,
too, 'cause
I mean, it was.
Sorry,
Oh,
Kim.
sorry, Jeff.
No, that's all right. So is it a fair comment then, and I don't want to speak out of turn and you having to share some inner workings of the Black Ferns camp, but from the outside looking in, it just looked as though England had, I can't remember what it was, 12 or 14 test matches in that time, the two years that you guys had an internal trial. To me, that was the big difference. And, you know, when you're having internal trials, you're only really measuring yourselves against your teammates. And that's that split second at the breakdown, or just that split second on the catch pass or whatever. You can't really measure that unless you're playing other teams overseas. Is that probably why you guys felt as though you slipped away a bit from the pack?
There were a few different contributing factors, I think, and that's definitely one of them. Like, you can't replicate test match footy intensity or pressure. You just can't, no matter how many trials you do or anything like that. The second thing was they are full-time professional athletes over there, and you can see that. You could see that in their body shape. They were absolute athletes. They were lean, fast and fit, and we just weren't fit enough. We weren't fast enough. We were under-conditioned. We could tell that we'd been in our houses in lockdowns, not even being able to train in a gym or be able to train skills with each other or anything like that. So yeah, a few factors contributed. We really, to me, it felt like we got chucked into a lion's den.
Sure
yeah,
did.
the situation. But we were still expected to win.
Yeah, well, see, something I've mentioned to Jeff as well before is that with you're not playing that many games, and you're playing all those FPC games here, Farah Palmer Cup, in New Zealand, and we're all just playing each other. Because all those games were televised, and all the girls back in England were full-time professionals who could then sit down, watch all those replays, watch all the nuances that you girls bring to the game. Would that have been a mitigating factor? Because they had the time to sit there and study that, when Chelsea scratches her ear, that's going to go right every time, sort of attitude. Because, they've had the time to sort of sit back and watch, whereas in the past, the Black Ferns have gone to Europe, not knowing who we were or who the girls were or who Chelsea was, and you've surprised them with what you could perform, but now they can sit back and literally watch every replay of every Farah Palmer Cup game.
Yeah, definitely. When you're a full-time professional, you've got time to do all the little 1%ers to help you be the best. So yeah, I think that could have been a contributing factor, but at the end of the day, they were fitter, faster, stronger, and we just weren't up to the plate physically at all, and we got taught a lesson and all of that, I think. So yeah, they would have reviewed us and done some analysis, but at the end of the day, yeah, when they can just outplay us, outrun us for 80 minutes, we're never going to really be able to compete. So lots of lessons.
You guys know yourselves. You never lose. You either win or learn. So there's going to be certainly a learning curve there for the Black Ferns leading in. So part of that is going to be the Super Rugby Aupiki. So hopefully we get a decent competition. Obviously, I don't want to put any more money in that COVID jar, but hopefully COVID doesn't ruin it any further. But on that too, I just want to commend you guys, Chelsea and James, because I know I messaged you guys and I was feeling your pain around obviously being isolated, but then having games cancelled and the whole competition disrupted. And Uncle, I'd be pulling my hair out going, and you guys were like, oh, well, it is what it is. People are worse off than us. So I think that calmness you guys exude is really cool. And obviously you bounce that off each other as well, which I think is really important. Eh?
Oh, cheers, mate. It's definitely has its up and down days. But
yeah, I'm sure.
Got to put things in.
So I'm going to wrap this up, but I do want to ask a question. Life after rugby, we've talked about, obviously, you got the World Cup at the end of the year, newly married, obviously you have thoughts about starting a family. Is there any thoughts around maybe having a bit of a stint overseas, coaching Chelsea as another coach? James, I mean, Surely there's got to be clubs around the world that want James Semple as a coach, Chelsea as an assistant coach player. Would that be on the cards, do you think?
What do you
Yeah,
think?
or James has massive goals in coaching, and I 100% believe in him. So I think that we will end up overseas, more so for his coaching. Where I'm at in life is I'm not making too much of like a 5-year plan or anything like that, because opportunities pop up left, right, and centre. And for me, it's just about taking the right opportunities at the right time. But I don't want to get too hung up on anything, because I want to have the ability to support him in his coaching, because he's been so supportive of me and my playing. So yeah, I think we'll just go with the flow and take whatever opportunities come our way.
Yeah, I think just in the coaching game, as you know, Jeff, a lot's out of your control, and I'm very lucky to have such a supportive wife in Chelsea, that she does give us the flexibility to do that if something does come up. And yeah, all I'm trying to do at the moment is just hone my craft as much as I can, gain as much experience, and then when that gig does come up, I'm fully ready to take it with both hands and hopefully capitalise, and then just keep going from there.
Absolutely. That's awesome, mate, because you guys, I mean, while you've had outstanding careers, the both of you, it's really quite exciting to know that, mate, the world is just out there. It's your oyster. There's so much that you guys can do after your playing career, Chelsea. Obviously, you know, part of the Sky Sports team at the moment. You could easily go into a coaching role. You could be a referee. You could be an administrator. You could do whatever you want. So there's all of that opens up for you. And of course, James, when you look at your impressive coaching record so far, you've got to realise that you're only young, and man, you've got plenty more years left yet as well. So really, really exciting times for you guys. So I'll wrap this up, and I really just want to thank you guys for coming on and sharing your thoughts, and been such an empowering little session. We've got a few little gems out there, obviously, and just want to wish you guys all the very best for your future. And hopefully we get to catch up real soon, and hopefully the Chiefs Blues game is one of those. We'll just have to play it by ear and see what happens. So I'm going to.
Sweet. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us. Enjoyed the chat.
No worries. Stay on, man. I'm just going to cut.
Thanks.